Yeah, so we'd like to thank everyone here for coming out today to our Moloch Zero interview training seminar.
It's great that y'all came out.
It means a lot to us. We're really excited to put you guys through this process and teach you how to run the Moloch training interview simulator. It's very, very good advanced technology.
I'm going to be honest, this is our first time doing this in front of such a great audience. Last audience, not so great.
So before we dive into the kind of droll, complex stuff, Joe wanted to lighten the mood a little bit.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of audience participation going on. I have a Mad Lips I want you guys to do with me. So I'm going to need a noun. Dog, great. I'm going to need an exclamation. Hi. Going to need a verb ending in ing. Shuddering. I'm going to need a person's name. Craig. I'm going to need an adjective. Wet. I'm going to need another noun. What was that? Chili pepper. Okay. Great. That's in there. That's locked. I'm going to need a person in the room. Wiley. Great. I'm going to need a number. 17. Oh, I'm going to need another number. 8. Going to need a plural noun. Peas? Okay. I'm going to need another noun. Cat or burrito? Burrito cat? Burrito. Okay. An adjective. Delicious. Okay. A color. Orange. A verb. Running. That's a good verb. A type of food. Pizza. A person's name. Rachel. Okay. A part of the body. Hand. Okay. Another plural noun. Tummies.
We're almost there.
Tummies. Okay. And another noun. Stock photo. That's good. That's topical. It's looking pretty good.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
So that was a lot of fun. Thank you guys.
I think we had a good time with that one.
Yeah. So moving into our presentation. You are all here today to join us in this training session and efficiency symposium for Moloch Zero. Welcome.
Welcome.
We are Seemingly Pointless. We're an independent contracted company that worked with the Moloch Corporation to develop this interview software. Now, you may be wondering what Moloch Zero is. Moloch Zero is worker management interview simulation. This is going to be used to figure out if the people that you're interviewing are right for the job of being a worker manager within the Moloch Corporation. By the end of this session, you will have a better understanding of the design of this technology. You will be prepared to administer interviews using the Moloch Zero technology, and you will be excited for the future of Moloch technologies. Before we begin, though, corporate has asked us to have a quality assessment throughout this. We'll have to do it, I think, 2 or 3 different times. We don't have any infrastructure built for this, so throughout we'll be asking if you believe that your time is being well spent. And if you agree, raise your hand. If you don't raise your hand. Because corporate wants this, we'll take a photo of it, but we're not going to be looking.
So
we don't want to affect the presentation.
We'll cover our eyes and we'll just take the photo. We won't look at the photo.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We won't look at the photo. We'll just send it.
So, like, for instance, right now for a practice
Yeah,
run,
so we'll
if
just...
you guys think this is a good use of time,
We think it is, but don't take our thoughts into consideration.
And we can't see this either, so don't worry. I'm taking it in 3, 2. Okay, I'm assuming it took. I can't look at it.
No, we won't look at the photo.
Yeah.
I hope you put your hands down.
Okay. Ignore him. He's not part of the simulation.
That's what he just told us.
So, post-session quality feedback. You can tweet at us, seemingly pointless. You can email us. Please let me know how we did, and if you have any future questions about our interview simulation technology, Moloch. We're going to demonstrate it to you shortly, but in case you needed to download it on your own for when you go out into the world to interview other people, you can navigate to various outlets such as GameJolt and itch.io with a Google search of Moloch Zero. And in terms of setting up the interview space, Joe will talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'll just start with a little story about how you want to set this game up in a typical space. So the key is to really stand out, and the way you stand out is to use Mr. D, Mr. Disney's wienie system. And that might sound like a joke, but I'll give a little backstory to this. So Walt Disney would go home to his wife, Lillian, and he'd go straight to the refrigerator, and he would take out a cold hot dog, and he would eat it. And yeah, you think I'm joking, but you can look this up. And he'd take out a cold hot dog, and he would eat it directly out of the fridge, and his wife would have already prepared dinner or would be preparing dinner, and it was this contentious point in their marriage where, you know, his Lillian would say something akin to, you know, I've already made this dinner for you. I don't know what you're doing eating cold hot dogs out of the fridge like some sort of freak. And, you know, his response was always like, the weenies were too tempting. I'd have to keep going back and getting them. So he basically started using this terminology to try, I guess he sort of retrofitted the terminology to make it sound like it was something that was really important. And now if you look at any parks that he built, he'd always be like, oh, you just look at the weenie, which would be like the Cinderella castle. You know, it'd be the idea that the tallest, most beautiful structure in any of his parks is something he would always colloquially refer to as the weenie of the park. And this is something that Disney still uses today. This is something that still exists in theme parks all over the world. This is part of their vernacular. So something that we try to do here at Seemingly Pointless and work with the Moloch Corporation is that whenever we show Moloch anywhere is we try to be the weenie. We try to make sure that we set something up that is large and very, very obvious so that wherever you are and wherever you're showing is we're the largest structure and anyone can see us from wherever we are. And that's just sort of a wayfinding technique.
Mm-hmm. So we're now going to navigate into the game itself. Oh no, did I just lock up or something?
Oh, you unlocked.
Oh, there we go. That was weird. There we go. So when an interviewee approaches your interview booth, the first thing they'll see is this boot up screen. It's a that big word, Moloch Corporation technology. You have to log into their own custom OS. Don't try to alter the guest user. Just go with guest user.
It's easiest.
And you'll be welcomed to a desktop screen. This will give your interviewee a bit of grounding before they enter the interview itself, such as what their desktop workstation station will look like at Moloch Corporation if they're accepted for the job. You have a nice little README, which will give you a little bit of background on what they're here to do. You have a nice little credits.
That's where our names are.
Mm-hmm. And then you have some documents that aren't particularly applicable to the software itself. You don't need to open those. The information in there does not affect the interview.
And you have Lucky Cup, which is a gem.
Mm-hmm.
can do a bit of audience participation here. Since you guys will be running your own versions of this,
Which cup?
which cup would you like to pick? You're all over the place.
You're
You gotta
all-
choose.
Okay, I heard a lot of middle. Oh, you
Guys got
right.
it.
We already had a little fun earlier, so we're gonna quit out of this. And when you open up the application, it should run smoothly like this. One thing that happened while we were working with the Moloch Corporation is they really distilled in us how important it was to have their opening splash screen included at its full length. They tried their best to keep their software kind of in line with the other corporate softwares you kind of see around in the world, both in interface, look, length, participation. And once it's opened, your interviewer will be faced with this screen where you can actually begin the interview.
Welcome to Moloch, making sacrifices for you. Congratulations on your selection as a tentative senior shift manager. Today, we will evaluate your ability to perform the associated duties. Our interview process will test you on the 4 key qualities of a shift manager:
IPO is pretty
intuition,
important.
problem solving, efficiency, obedience.
And just to be clear, you guys are not actually being trained or interviewed for the position of shift manager. You are all here to be trained to be interviewers for the position of shift manager.
Yeah.
It's very important to keep those separate.
Rather than telling you what to do, I'll let you figure it out.
So,
I think you'll find our systems very intuitive.
I'm gonna grab my mouse real quick.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll just take a second to look at the Mad Lib again. It's still looks pretty good.
There we go. So, something the Moloch Corporation finds very important is intuition. You have to figure it out. What should I click on?
Guess not.
That was correct. Something that they find very important is trying to be efficient with your time. So you can tell that the interface is color-coded to try to enforce certain patterns. Green being efficient and double time means they run faster, but your workers are not going to do so great. Another thing that they found important about their interface is that they legally have to show the repercussions of your shift management action, but they don't draw a ton of attention to it. So you can roll over your workers to get a little bit of information on them. But that's about it. You can see how slow it takes when you just try to walk them normal speed.
All right then, let me evaluate.
And that time counter is only going up.
Now let's move on to the second trait, problem solving.
Hypo is key here.
Something that's really important about these digital systems that we tried to build into Moloch very well is the idea that all of these things have underlying biases. There's ways that
Move the workers across the hallways.
And you can see here you have a little bit of a...
It's not difficult. It's easy.
You have a bit of a puzzle going on here, and you can all kind of guess what happens when they run into each other. So we're going to try to avoid that. All these interactive systems have biases, and because they're presented to you without a lot of alteration, such as this one, there isn't a ton you can do to really... I mean, there isn't really inherent ability to question it. You have to design systems to cause players to kind of question what they're doing and why they're doing it. The idea that you can kind of gamify anything to make it more enjoyable or engaging can be really dangerous. And it's kind of good to keep that in mind when you're analyzing a new piece of media, especially if it's interactive. Because all these things are designed with a belief system in mind when they're being made, be it inherently obvious that they're there, or if it's just kind of subconscious on the creator's part. And I promise this is way harder than it looks. So, trying to draw attention...
I need to evaluate again. We're doing well.
Trying to draw attention to a game's underlying systems and asking if the options the game is giving you to use are the most applicable or moral or ethical is kind of important. And it doesn't mean that the experience can't be engaging, it just means that the player has a little bit more perspective on what they're interacting with and possibly why.
Now we will interview you on what you have learned so far. These metrics are critical to the health and success of our program.
Cool. So before we go into this, we need to do one of the evaluation pictures. Would you like to ask?
All right, so we have to ask again how everyone thinks we're doing, and this is another show of hands. Raise them if you think we're doing well, keep them down if we're doing poorly, and you can do that now.
Yep, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think I got it. I'm not going to look.
Okay, so put your hands down, and then we'll look. Thank you.
Cool.
Which of our qualities have you been tested on so far?
Any guesses from the audience? 4? 3? I hear overwhelming 3.
Is our interface intuitive enough for you?
3. I mean, we know the right answer, but let's go with 1. That sounds about right.
What do you see as your role in our corporation?
I heard 3.
3?
I heard escape.
How long do you plan to work for us?
4? That was the right answer.
That was an overwhelming 4.
Mm-hmm.
How interested are you in being granted this position?
1 and 4. I don't know if you have to split the
If
difference,
we
or-
heard anyone saying floor, we won't watch. But if you need to leave the room, that's okay with us.
Thank you. Before we continue the interview process, we are obligated to provide all potential candidates a 3-minute bathroom break.
Oh.
Please press any key once you are ready to continue.
Yeah, so if anyone needs to use the bathroom real fast.
Yep. Couple. All right. Hey guys.
There's... So the question is, what is our positions in Moloch? We're actually independent contractors here, just showing off the software. Moloch doesn't have time to kind of come out to events like this, so we design the software, and they're like, "Hey, you guys should go teach people how to host interviews with it." I'm not sure if people actually left for the bathroom or not, but I kind of want to begin again. I think it's safe. We'll start again.
Next pillar, efficiency.
So something that I hold very dear when making any kind of interactive software like this is the different components of what makes a game.
Now, efficiency.
There's voluntary participation. A
Ideally,
feedback system.
you would have been efficient in our first 2 tests.
So voluntary participation, a feedback system, an
Here
end
is your
state,
chance to really shine.
and rules. But none of that stuff I think is inherently required. The player
Show
just
us
has
your
to.
time management abilities.
Oh man, I love competing with that. The player just has to believe that one of those 4 things are there. So there's a lot of kind of wiggle room that you can mess around with and kind of screw things up with. I also like to differentiate end state from from goals. A game like this, you assume that the goal would be to kind of complete the interview process, but you don't really know what the exact end is. It's a little hard when it's undefined what you're working towards. You know there's something there, but you just don't quite know what it is. And each of these levels kind of embodies a different emotional state. This one, in order to figure out if someone's going to be a good shift manager or not, is meant to be a little anxious. Don't tell anyone, but this puzzle is actually impossible to solve without taking casualties from collision. This was designed to be an unwinnable puzzle. You can try, but no matter what you do, you're always... And now we've got this thing going on here too. So no matter what you do here, you're gonna bump people into each other. Sound design?
Well done. On to the final trait. Obedience.
Sort of looking into the sound design of the experience, a lot of that kind of comes from, I guess initially it sort of comes from looking at games like Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker. It sort of stemmed from playing experiences in that area and having this kind of hollow
The
feeling.
last
A lot
of the
of it's
4
very
key traits is obedience.
empty feeling. Because you play it, this is a great time to say how empty that feels. You play that, and then I'd turn it off, and it was a lot of the sound design that would be sticking with me. I mean, there was a lot of this sort of echoing and hollow sound design to it, and they definitely managed to nail that space. So I was trying to hit the exact same kind of mark with that.
That was fine, but I bet you could do it faster.
This is kind of the point when you realize that they don't really care about any of the traits you may have cared about when you entered the game about trying to save as
Please
many
perform
workers.
the task faster.
Yeah, this is definitely when you start realizing the previous puzzles where you have some casualties. Now you
Perform
really
the task again.
realize it's not, didn't really matter at all.
The company really isn't interested in your ability to solve those puzzles. It's more about blind obedience to what
Perform it again.
they want you to do. And we were kind of going through this kind of shaping these parts of the game. A lot of it kind of came down to looking at what a lot of the corporate culture already kind of embodies.
Yeah.
Again.
One of my friends around the time that this game was being made was working at Walmart, and I was asking him how he was doing, and this was right after he graduated college and he couldn't find a job around, and he studied media arts, and I was asking him how he was doing. He was like, "Oh, I'm just living my own personal hell." And he would tell me these horror stories about like what training was like at Walmart, and I was like, that sounds like something you could try to turn into a game. That sounds like something that would be really fun to turn into a game.
That's all we need. Thank you for participating in our evaluation.
And that's what the training simulation will be like. If you have any problems with your interviewee, be sure to note it down in email, because we don't want any bad interviewees coming out of that experience. If they're not completely submitting to the application, then they're probably not a good fit. But, do you want to open for questions?
Yeah, do we have any questions from our prospective interviewers in the audience?
Can we play Lucky Cup again?
Yes.
But you only get one.
So there was a lot of small details in this game that I didn't quite bring up in the moment, but the timer, as the game goes on, gets slowly faster. So you just trust that it's a reliable timer, and you may not realize that as it goes on, it starts shaving seconds into half seconds. And if you're
no, you don't always win.
you guys have been very lucky.
Cup.
There we go.
Yep. Does it?
What?
That's
The
the
juiciness
spirit.
on that wind sound? I don't know. There's something like the bassiness to it. Just like it just sounds so good. Middle? Oh my!
Oh,
ooh,
there you go.
that's good. This was actually really fun to make. It took a lot to like go against design instincts and speed it up.
Can we see what's in the document there on the bottom of the screen?
The tunnel
Which
collapse.
one?
The one underneath Lucky Cup.
Oh, tunnel
Tunnel
collapse. Oh, okay, gotcha. It's a little notepad note about a tunnel collapse having taken in there. The wording of it makes it apparent that they don't really care about the workers in the tunnels. It's more about losing efficiency because of the actual rubble in the way. They wouldn't let us add that in as an option. Corporate had some issues with us trying to do that. And you're not allowed to look at any kind of pass.
I have a question about the art style.
Yes.
Hi. So everything looks really cool. It's got this amazing, like, de-res kind of look. I was hoping you guys could talk a little bit about your process of, like, growing and evolving the look of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Initially, the game kind of stemmed from an interest that I had, and I guess it was sort of an interest we both had in German expressionism. I guess more specifically, it was stuff like Der Golem or the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and Metropolis was really the sort of the crux of where we were coming from with this one. And the art style, it was initially we're like maybe like low poly 3D, and then we're kind of like dancing around with that, and I was like, well, no, maybe this would exist better as like a 2D, sort of like a 2D really simple puzzle game, and that's kind of where we ended up on. And then it just seemed like this sort of cobbling together the art the way we did it, because it sort of ended up being both of us that were doing the art on this. Like a lot of this was both of us on most of the art assets, so it was sort of, I don't want to call it a Frankenstein of art assets, but I think it just kind of worked out well how it ended up turning out. But I think a lot of it was sort of based in a style guide that was hopefully leaning towards German expressionism.
and if anyone here has seen Metropolis, the name of the game actually comes from Metropolis, specifically when Moloch is in there.
Yeah.
It's having the scenes of all the workers kind of marching into this mouth, and like just seeing it being like, dang. Oh yeah, so we finally reached it. You play
Yeah,
Lucky
there you
Cup
go.
too much, it kicks you out. It says take a break from Lucky Cup.
I have a question here.
Yes.
Oh, that wasn't actually a question. I was just mimicking the
Oh.
horror of the protagonist when he has a like delirious vision of Moloch swallowing up the workers.
Yes.
So, is this thing working? Yeah. Okay. Did you have the? You said you bounced between a few different art styles. Did you have the broader sort of concept for this being like a corporate sort of quiz program thing before you even started making it into a game? Did you just have that you wanted to make a commentary on this and then the game came after?
It
Or
was a bit of a combination. I want to say that something we've been very attuned to, actually quitting out of this for a moment to switch to a different thing, is taking. I'm pretty sure I downloaded it.
Well, I guess we were sort of mulling over a couple different games in the same space for a while. I guess it was from maybe 2014, around 2014, I think is when we started talking about something like this.
Yeah.
When we were at the Tokyo Game Show, just because we were watching. It was actually because of the wayfinding in that space, and because there was just these huge crowds out there, and it was just nuts watching like 100,000 people line up and move through a space so seamlessly, and then thinking about that and sort of contextualizing that into. Honestly, it was looking at that and then looking at something like Metropolis was just so interesting, and thinking about that as like a puzzle game, because you have puzzle games, but then it's like, well, imagine the puzzle game where you're someone that's moving humans through corridors, where instead of like a traffic controller, you're the human traffic controller. I don't
Thanks,
know if that
Norton.
answers your question, but
So, in lieu of actually bringing it up, we made this game called EnviroGolf a while ago, which is everything against the sport game, everything that a sport game shouldn't be. The goal behind it is that it is a sports game that is all text-based.
oh, what are your details?
Yeah,
Is it clean?
I think it's clean. I love it when you make a game and then your computer blocks
Rejects it.
Yeah.
There's a
It's-
virus in the
Yeah.
system.
It's very topical with Moloch, like for this to happen right now, which is like kind of neat, but also just kind of terrifying.
I think you guys submitted this one year, and I was pretty sure it was a trick.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, it's really really lo-fi, but you have to choose a strength. Oh my god, this is so good. So before I've done this, on the second or third go, it gives you other options. It's like it slowly
There might
starts
be a
giving up.
playthrough of it online you could just look at.
I could. I guess we'll let's just look it up on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, the Norton virus.
So,
yeah.
EnviroGolf is everything it shouldn't be, and it worked. Like, it did okay. Yeah, let's just do that. We're not going to play sounds. We don't want to listen to people talking over it. But, and it's going to take forever to load? Oh. So, it's just this. It's this really, really, really finicky game where it's like a sports game, but the point of the sports game, nice!
Oh, there it is. There you go.
Yeah.
Now you're in. You've hacked it. You're
Yeah,
in.
It's it's a sports game that doesn't play like a sports game. It takes away all the power of it. So you get in there and you can start choosing your putters and whatnot, but you never get to feel the power. There's never the sense that you're actually playing a sports game. And the best part is after you pick your options, it gives you a little graphic of your character swinging, and it's always the same swing no matter what you pick,
Yeah.
club-wise.
Putter, it doesn't
no matter what the power is.
You're just
it's
you're always driving it.
It's always the same. And this
There
is
you
like,
go.
it goes to this, he does a little thing, you hear a little psh. And then it tells you how bad you are. and you can't get out of the screen until the owl or squirrel, whatever it is fully over. So you have to wait for it to move fully onto the screen before you can actually click out of it and move to the next stroke. So it's just a really frustrating system, but like that's what's kind of enjoyable about it. Like you don't get much information, and it's just like it's like a thing. But moving into Moloch, it's just this kind of series of interlocked systems that just go against what they should be. With Moloch, we wanted to make a game that could tell a kind of story in a system that isn't very attuned to stories. Like the kind of game that Moloch is effectively it's a traffic simulator. You get to control stoplights, you get to control the flow of traffic, and it was like, hey, like this would actually kind of work as a story, a vehicle for narrative, if we change it into workers and kind of put it in this expressionist space.
Utopian, yeah.
We have a question.
I was wondering what specifically you pulled from your pal's Walmart experience.
Oh, yeah. So for him, it was, I think, a lot of the training videos that he had to watch that he was like really, really disgusted by. It was that, and he was also working like third shift, and it was just sort of this, every time I saw him, he just looked a little more sickly than the time previous. And he was always really into video art, so it was just sort of that every time you'd see him, he just looked a little less human. So it was definitely that kind of, and I would always work on him with, on projects and stuff. So it was just sort of this, every time you'd see him, he just didn't quite have the spark that he had earlier. So, it was just sort of that. I think that definitely helped this project a lot with the more I talked to him about it. And I don't want to say it was research, because I definitely didn't like dive too deep into the stuff. I didn't like interview him about. Yeah, right. I just sort of talked to him briefly about like, what the things he didn't like about it, and it was kind of like, okay, well, there's definitely some stuff going on here. There's definitely some
and the kind of corporate music and loading screens and all these obnoxious pieces of software, and trying to turn that into something that's like semi-tolerable for a game experience.
And I think that kind of also, I worked with I worked as an AV tech with the government in DC for a while, and I definitely used some of that as well. There's definitely some of that coming through in this.
We have any additional questions? How you guys feeling? Oh, we got one over here.
Yeah.
Hi. I really liked the part at the beginning of the presentation where we did the Mad Lib, but I felt kind of disappointed when we didn't get to hear about it, and we don't know how good it is. So I was wondering if you could like rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how good it was.
Yeah, I was like reading over it. When I said it was good when he was getting the mouse, I was garnishing it a bit.
Soft skills.
Yeah, I can just give it to you afterwards if you just want to like see it. Yeah. I can like send a photo of it to you or something.
He'll be around.
I'll be, yeah. I mean, unless other people like want to know what I'd rate it as. You just want to know my rating? Like, see. 1 to 2.
Okay.
Give it like a 1.7 out of like
Do you have
a
plans?
total 2.9.
Sorry. Don't mean to interrupt. That was really rude of me. Do you have plans to do a Moloch 1?
So, funny story, but yes. Something we do a lot, including in Viral Golf, is we make these shorter experiences with the hope of seeing how players and festivals and different things react. And at that point, we kind of reassess and push forward. So we have a lot of feedback from this game and things we want to change. Going into it, something we weren't expecting was like the loading screens are all purposeful, and we couldn't see a way around it. But obviously, it's boring, and if you're not like tuned into what the game is trying to do, it's a good point for people to kind of zone out and quit. So what we've had people suggest to us is when it goes to those loading screens, gamifying it, like pushing even harder into that kind of weird kind of corporate like attention grabbing. Adding little idle games while you're just waiting around in this one. Even more so, one of the ideas I liked the most was making it so when Lucky Cup runs out of plays, it doesn't just say take a break. It says you have to do so many more interviews. You have to run so many more people through the gauntlet to earn time to play Lucky Cup. And just really, I don't know. It's going to get very gross very fast.
Well, it's also, the idea that Lucky Cup's the actual game.
Yeah.
And that Moloch is just sort of an ancillary experience.
Lucky Cup also, it was specifically designed to be the most frustrating, just luck-based thing ever. Like, you can't keep track of the cups. Like, they all condense in the middle at some point, and when they re-separate, like, the only thing you can really guess is that it may not be the top cup, because you just saw that one go down and move, but it still could be that. Like, the game randomly chooses a cup when you click, so there's, like, no skill involved. And it just, we kind of put that one in there to, like, amplify the experience of Moloch, where it's like you have no control, like you think you have control, but ultimately, like, you've been doing what the corporation wants you to do, but you've been internally struggling this whole time, and in retrospect, like, it never really mattered. Like, they built the software.
I think
they're going to run you through the gauntlet. The only thing you can really do by protesting is just quitting out.
It sort of helps make it more of an, I don't want to call it really an echo chamber, but it really helps amplify the, like, it doesn't really have to mean anything. Sometimes you lose Lucky Cup, sometimes you win Lucky Cup.
But yeah, you still played Lucky Cup, and that's what counts.
But you're playing it, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like, one last detail before we stop is towards the end, on the very last level, if you refuse to play the last level, the announcer will bark at you a couple times, telling you that they don't have time for you to kind of wait there. And at some point, they'll actually take away control from you and just run the people through the gauntlet without you. They'll just say, like, oh, you waited too long. We're going to take away your play. You can't do this anymore. And then it thanks you and closes out. And that's the only way to really fail or win, depending on what your goals in the game are.
But regardless, the experience will still finish.
Yeah.
Without your
Metafictionally, your own experience playing the game fits no matter what, because you're the interviewer. So there's no, like, breaking it. You can't stand in a corner and say, like, oh, this game is broken. I'm not immersed anymore. Like, being disenfranchised with the game in of itself is an expression that the game allows by making you the person that's sitting at your desktop doing it, which I'm pretty happy about. I think that's kind of cool.
All right, we're just about at time. Let's go ahead and get a round of applause for our guests.
Thank you.